Hey fans, did you know that Dash is the only digital auction platform built specifically for professional sports teams and their fan bases? It is also your place to score your favorite hockey team's most authentic memorabilia and game day experiences. Dash powers the auctions for your favorite AHL, ECHL, SPHL, NAHL, and USHL hockey clubs, plus many more across sports. Get in on the bidding now by texting DASH to 66866 or visit thesinbin.net and click on the word auctions in the upper right corner to find out the latest hockey auctions. Dash, making sports bidding so much easier in the digital age. This episode of the In the Corners podcast is sponsored by Sporfy, the sports video platform that allows you to instantly capture, replay, and share your favorite game highlights, all without having to film. For more information, visit sporfy.com or download the mobile app from the Google Play Store or the App Store.
Bringing you the only weekly podcast dedicated to the ECHL. This is In the Corners podcast. Now your host, CC Hawkley.
Good evening from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado.
And Wayne, New Jersey.
This is the In the Corners podcast for Monday, June 22nd, 2020. And we're actually recording on Sunday, Father's Day, June 21st. So for all the fathers out there, we want to wish you a happy Father's Day. And thank you for joining us on the good ship In the Corners for episode number 86. My name is CC Hawkley.
And I'm Sean O'Brien.
Thanks for tuning in with us on what has been a phenomenally busy offseason thus far in the AHL and ECHL, and, well, at the NHL level too. But, you know, the sin bin, we cover minor league hockey, and some of that does bleed over from the AHL to the NHL. But, yeah, we've got a full docket today for all the happenings in the hockey world. And, man, one of the major storylines, we're just going to jump right into it, is it goes all the way up to the NHL level. The Buffalo Sabres and their AHL affiliate, the Rochester Americans, they had over 20 staff members let go. And that was on Tuesday, June 16th. And boy, it was just as Sean put it, a bloodletting for sure. So let's not waste any time. Like I said, we're going to get right to it. And we've got a guest. We've got two guests on the show today, but our first guest has been covering the Rochester Americans for over 13 years. He is from LGA585.com, formerly Let's Go Amerks. He's been doing it for a minute, over 13 years. So it's a fair statement to say that he knows his stuff. So on the show today is none other than Keith Wozniak. Keith, thanks for coming on the show, bud.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I guess 13 years is a long time. Fake it till you make it, as they say, but...
Hey man, you've been running that side. Yeah, you've been running that side a long time. I know we had NHL.com's Patrick Williams on the show a few episodes ago now, and he's been covering the AHL for 15 years. So, I mean, yeah, at least you're pretty close to that. I'd say that you know your stuff, and you're definitely not faking anymore, I'm guessing.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's fun to joke about, but yeah, no, it's as you guys know, in the minor leagues, there's typically a lack of so to speak mainstream coverage, I guess, and our local newspaper has no real interest in covering the team, so it was just something that I picked up on and have run with, and it's fun to do occasionally until weeks like this happen, and then it kind of takes some fun away from it. But, it kind of shows where it's needed to have people covering the teams and writing about what's happening to put the news out there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been doing this for 3 years and, covered the Idaho Steelheads for a couple seasons, moved to Denver, started covering the Eagles. And, Denver surprisingly has a lot of Avalanche/Eagles coverage. I mean, it's just very passionate, fervent fan base here. And, but then there's markets like, Rochester or other markets where the local media doesn't give it as much attention, like you said. So, yeah, with all that said, I mean, gosh, what a day on Tuesday just to see the news that, Terry and Kim Pegula, just completely gutted the coaching staff and the managerial staff of both the Buffalo Sabres and the Rochester Americans. I mean, as brief as you can. I mean, you've got the floor. Maybe not so brief. Just give us a rundown of what exactly happened in the Buffalo Sabres organization on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's as you kind of described before, was a bloodletting and a bloodbath, a dumpster fire. The words go on of trying to describe the day, but I think the biggest news was it just started with in the morning, Jason Botterill, Randy Sexton, and Jason Greeley were fired, and general managers get fired often. If they don't have the results, especially at the NHL, it's going to happen. There's going to be a change. So while many people, kind of thought Botterill was on the chopping block early on, a few weeks ago, Kim Pegula came out and said, hey, he's fine. That's, he's our general manager going forward. Fast forward 3 weeks and a lot changed, and the news came out that, that he was fired. So, it is what it is. And I think the entire day took a turn where, everybody just thought early on it was general managers. Hey, they thought the team need to go in a different direction. And then, once later in the afternoon, they found out that the entire Rochester Americans coaching staff was fired. Chris Taylor, Gordon Dineen, Toby Peterson, three guys that have, had the Amerks at the top of the standings for 3 seasons. It was, I think that's kind of what took everything to a whole new level for the day, because, not only were the general managers fired, but then, the whole coaching staff for, they just essentially said, hey, guys couldn't have done anything different. We're just going in a different direction. And, it wasn't the fact, it can be understandable. Things, so a new general manager wants to take a new direction, and it just turned into, just how it happened. And, just from, the earlier in the day, the press conference announcing the general managers were gone, everyone thought that was it. And then as the day went on, the coaching staff's fired, the entire scouting department was essentially gutted. And it was just turned into a day from the general manager being gone to just something that, for most part, most people in hockey say is, no one's really ever seen anything like this happen before.
Oh, geez. Yeah. It was, again, like Sean said, just a bloodletting, just completely draining the Sabres organization of their coaching and managerial lifeblood. Was this complete house cleaning? Unprecedented is a good word for it from everything that you described. Was this unprecedented house cleaning justified, in your opinion?
You know what? No. I guess it all depends, how you can look at it. They said one of the things that, Kevin Adams, the new general manager, said about, Rochester was, hey, they wanted to focus more on development. And yes, Rochester did have a lot of veterans. I think Rochester probably had, it's tough to know exact salary costs in the minors, but just for what we knew as far as guys on one-way, two-way contracts, the Amerks essentially had a salary of just over $5 million, which is massive in the minor leagues. So, they said they wanted to go more development and not rely on veterans, which, all right, that makes sense. But if you don't have any prospects to fill out a roster or high-end prospects, guess where do you have to turn to? You have to sign free agents and, and the veteran guys. So, I guess if you're going to go that direction, there's also was talks of, hey, the Sabres said they wanted to be a little bit more leaner in terms of maybe saving money. Well, that's kind of tough to go along with that line when earlier in the season, Randy Sexton, Steve Greeley, the assistant general managers, was reported that they likely had 2-year contract extensions in the middle of the season. So there you had Botterill, Greeley, Sexton had contract extensions already in place. So guess what? Now they're being paid for not doing anything. There were talks of, giving the Amerks coaching staff extensions. And, if you want to go in a different direction, I guess that can be understandable. But to kind of put that on the coaching staff for coaching what they have is just, it just seems unprecedented. The coaching staff did everything right. They got the team wins when, top of the standings, and then boom, just gutted. So, it's more of, if you want to go in a different direction, fine, but how they did it is, again, that's really what a lot of it just seems to come down to. And, Rochester had the results. It's not like, they were bottom of the standings and fighting to develop or, to win games. Everything was showing Rochester was in the right direction. And then, just late in the day, boom, everything gone, and we're starting from scratch.
I think one of the things that surprised me the most is when I started looking at some of the top prospects from the Sabres, it seemed like a lot of them were not on Rochester's radar. Like a lot of their first round and second round and third round picks from the past 2-3 years were either still in Europe, even though they should be AHL eligible, or were in college. And I guess that's understandable. But it was really surprising for me to see that it didn't seem like the Sabres were really hustling guys to get over into working with their development staff and their coaches and their facilities, and were rather content kind of leaving them in Europe. That was something that was surprising to me that they did, where it's they want to focus more on development, but you're also not putting your staff in a position to be able to develop guys that aren't there.
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing to look at is that, a lot of Jason Botterill's draft picks are just now going to be coming into the league, turning pros. Should they have been, I guess there's the old discussion of, at what point is pushing someone to the pro level too soon that can be a bad thing. Someone like Casey Middlestat probably went to the NHL a year too early. And then this past year in Rochester, he was playing a completely different game and, looking better. You go back a few more seasons when Alex Nylander turned pro, probably year or two too early. But at the same point, like you just mentioned, you got to get your guys, the prospects, to your coaching staff and development staff to work with them. And if you don't, that's how can you put that on the coaches saying you guys didn't focus on development enough? That's just, the coaches don't make the decision of who gets put on the roster early enough. They just, they work with what they have.
Yeah. And in some cases, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't throw at least one stone at the you didn't put development over of Andrew Hammond was the goalie that started the most games for you over Jonas Johansson. And I mean, I really don't want to try and say this name. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen?
Yes. Yep. Or UPL.
Yes.
We say UPL.
Yeah.
That's a lot
like
easier.
I understand that UPL he is their goalie of the future. And he wasn't quite there when they called him up. Like, he looked great in the E, but when it came to the 10 games he played, he was bad. And that's something that I think that their plan going forward was he was penciled in as, probably going to get 25 games in the A next year. And he was going to have to learn when you let bad goals in, you're going to have to, understand and move forward from that. But I don't know, having 31-year-old Andrew Hammond play 33 games, that's development-wise, that's not really doing it for you. But again, if Jonas Johansson is not ready and UPL is very clearly not ready, you got to put somebody in there.
Yeah, I think that's the game's probably, if Johansson wasn't in Buffalo from from Linus Ullmark being injured, Johansson may have probably matched the games of Hammond. Botterill kind of went with, and Randy Sexton, their philosophy was let's develop through winning. The Sabres have been bad for a while, and everybody knows that. So that was, hey, if guys learn how to win in the lower levels and enjoy winning, they're going to bring that enthusiasm up to the NHL with them. So, do you struggle with somebody developing in goal, or do you just kind of split the time and hope to, have everybody kind of learn as they go and win games and get better as you go? So that seemed to be the approach that from Jason Botterill and Sexton and Greeley they kind of put in there early was let's develop through winning. And that's something that the organization hadn't been doing. They haven't won a playoff series in, gosh, I don't think, 15 plus years or something, at least, the Amherst haven't in a long time. I've lost track for the Sabres, but if you go 10 years without winning a playoff series or even making the playoffs, that's bad. So, the goal was kind of, hey, let's use people like Hammond to teach our young guys, what it takes to be a winner what it takes to get to that next level, and then let them carry it on upward from there.
One thing I also will say.
Go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead, Cece.
No,
right.
You first.
Okay. So one of the things I will say, like I think Rochester's coaching staff, they're good coaches. I do. But the one thing that I will say is the Mavericks have not won a playoff round since 2004, 2005. That's not great. And yeah, having great regular seasons is one thing, but if you're consistently doing well in the regular season and then falling out in the playoffs, that hurts that kind of perception of, that Botterill wanted to build of winning through or development through winning.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's something that Amherst have been swept the last, previous 2 years, in the playoffs. They just showed up and weren't anywhere good enough to compete, and then obviously this year happened. And, if I think they would have, they would have gone to the playoffs and they would have been swept again, or, didn't make it out of the first round, or, were miserable in the first round, then yeah, I absolutely think that would have been looked bad on the coaching staff 100%. So it's not so much that in the way that the organization said, hey, we want to go in a different direction. It comes down to just, how they did it and the way it all went down. And, over the last 3 years, and even longer, because, Chris Taylor has been part of the Sabres for some time. He took a year off going to Wilkes-Barre, but he was an assistant for the Amherst. So he's known all these players, that have been around for, 4+ years, a lot of guys on the Sabres. So, he's been there and talking to them about development, and he knows what kind of people they are and players they are. And, they've had that communication going on for years with all these players, and now there's nothing. So, all these, young players that, the Luukkonens and the, Middlestad and Morgan and Fitzgerald and Bryson, and the list goes on of all these young kids that are showing futures, their line of communication is just dropped. It's vanished. Who's going to take over for that? Who's going to, talk to them about what's going on and, what they've done the last few seasons and what they need to do next. So it's it's going to be a big uphill climb to go on. And, of course anything can happen, but it's just to end everything in one afternoon is just completely, again, back to unprecedented.
Yeah, it definitely, to use a Game of Thrones reference, it definitely resembled the Red Wedding. And gosh, the Pegulas were, just completely slaughtering the coaching staff and managerial staff that was House Stark, if you will. But that said, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and one other thing is just, in terms of, Chris Taylor has been part of the Rochester hockey community for 20 years, essentially. He took a few years off, went to Europe, season off, and was coaching in Wilkes-Barre. But, to have one person be kind of an ambassador for your city, that's unheard of anywhere. It's not common anymore. He's built up a lot of enthusiasm for the Amherst and the city of Rochester over the last 3 years. And, just to, how's the organization going to get people enthused again in the team when you just had your Red Wedding and gutted everything? And, it comes back to winning fixes everything, but until you can win and prove anything, you have those other small battles like, Chris Taylor on your team and your community, and, being an enthusiastic guy for the team and, being the cheerleader, so to speak.
So just to finish up and kind of wrap this up in a nice bow, to kind of circle back around to Terry and Cam Pegula. Like you said, it was just, there was so many coaching and managerial changes that occurred, or at least firings. And they got a lot of flack on social media and otherwise for it. And, like I said, just to kind of wrap this up, do you think that criticism towards them was justified and warranted?
100%. Yeah. They gutted the management staff, held a press conference, and then acted like that was it. Hey, new general manager, Kevin Adams, going to take over. And then as the day went on, just, they cleared the rest of the house and didn't discuss, just acted in the morning like nothing else was going to happen. So, it was almost as if they just, they blindsided everyone. They knew more was coming and they just didn't let on to it. And, they just kind of, that's their decision. They're the owners, but you also have to say, hey, what, if you're going to do these moves, you're going to be held accountable, or, we want to be able to ask questions about it. And yeah, it was just to get everything in a day. Yeah. The backlash is definitely there because it comes back down to, the communication wasn't there, and, the organization hasn't won anything in a long time. And here we are again, going through more general managers and more coaching staff.
Keith, I was going to tell the folks that, this is going to be airing on Monday night, and Monday morning, afternoon, you did contribute to an article that I was putting out there on the Americans and the coaching staff and the managerial staff being let go and everything through the Buffalo organization and everything. So thanks again for contributing to that. Thanks for coming on the show again. Is there anything that, any other projects or any other articles that you've got going on at lga585.com?
As the only thing I think I'm going to start trying to work on is, how much do veterans play a role in winning championships in the American League?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that, we all think, hey, they can provide a valuable asset to the team. So, it's probably going to be a number of months before the new season starts. So I may try to dig into that deep to see, do teams that win in the playoffs and win championships rely on prospects or veterans? And, see how it's gone over the last 10 years, because, and on paper, we all think, hey, maybe veterans lead the way, but, is it probably high-end prospects play a bigger role in, in your future of the organization?
Oh, yeah. If anyone can attest to the fact that the American Hockey League has definitely shifted into a much more developmental system, especially with a lot of NHL clubs owning their American League teams now. I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you find there. So, Keith, you can follow Keith Wozniak on Twitter at LGA585. And like I said, LGA585.com. Anywhere else that we can follow you to catch up on your work on the Americans?
That is it. Just the website and Twitter are the two main avenues. So thank you very much for having me, guys. And, we'll see when hockey starts up eventually.
Sounds like a plan, Keith. Thank you very much, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
You too. Once again, Keith Wozniak from LGA585.com, formerly Let's Go Amerks. He's been around a while. He's been doing this a minute. So had to get him on the show and see what he thought about all this Buffalo and Rochester shenanigans have been going on. Well, I guess maybe they're not shenanigans. You got a better word for it, Sean?
I mean, we've thrown out a lot of them out there. Bloodletting, for me, like there is one part of it that I can't overlook, and it's that the Pegulas, I have a lot of love in my heart for the Pegulas. Terry Pegula is a Penn State alum, and he basically gifted Penn State a D1 hockey program.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, I'm from the city of Buffalo. He owns the Bills, which are my football team, and has done a lot to help turn that city around. So there is a lot of love in my heart for Terry Pegula and Kim Pegula. That being said, man, did they do some wrong and continue to do some wrong with how they manage the Bills. Like the one thing that sticks in my head after they did the press conference about releasing Jason Botterill is they said, we feel like we weren't being heard. And that sticks in my head. It's like, you shouldn't be. You don't know how to run a hockey team. That's why you hire hockey people to do it. And if you look at Jason Botterill's record as GM, I've been watching The Wire a lot with my brother-in-law and getting into it. So I'll phrase it like this. Jason Botterill deserved to get got. That O'Reilly trade looked very bad day one and has managed to age worse over time. The Jeff Skinner contract looked bad day one, and it doesn't look good now after he scored 14 goals and was a negative expected goals player this season for a $10 million cap hit.
Yikes.
Now, I've also heard some rumors that he didn't want to do either of those things, but the Pagulas were like, nope, this is the direction we're going. And if that's the case, I'm sure being free of the insanity of meddling ownership is probably a blessing to Jason Botterill. But I just can't help but see the way that they phrased that and just think that the GM might have the title of GM might be Kevin Adams, but it really seems like the GM of the Buffalo Sabres is Jack Eichel, because the Pagulas said they gave Jason Botterill this endorsement, a couple of days before, and then Jack Eichel goes, "I'm frustrated. I'm sick of losing," on a Sabres Zoom media call, and then 2 days after that, no more Jason Botterill, no more basically anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, you could tell me that Kevin Adams is the GM, but to me, general manager Jack Eichel.
Yeah, it reminds me of LeBron James over in the NBA. I mean, he basically can either put bugs in people's ears or just flat out say, "Hey, this is what's going to happen. These are the people I want on my team." And yeah, if Jack Eichel has that power, then the GM chair is really just going to be a revolving, figurehead or I guess a puppet, a marionette, just on the strings of Jack Eichel. I mean, if he's got that control, then yeah, it's just going to be a kind of not even an honor. Well, yeah, not even an honorary position. Just kind of a, just it's like the Queen of England. It's just not even. Well, that has a whole lot more honor than a Buffalo Sabres GM, that's for sure. But that was a bad analogy. But yeah, I mean, like, you made a lot of good points about the amateur scouting staff, and actually, tell us a little bit more about the amateur scout. You haven't even touched on that yet.
Yeah, so their amateur scouting staff also needed to get got. Like, besides the slam dunk prospects like Eichel and Dahlin, like, none of their scouts were rushing into the room drafting and be like, "Jack Eichel, I know you haven't heard of him, but that's the guy we should," like, no, those were obvious choices. And the next best draft pick the Sabres have made in the last 10 years, besides the two slam dunks that they were handed, is Sam Reinhart, maybe? And they took Sam Reinhart over Leon Draisaitl, William Nylander, Nikolai Ehlers, and Dylan Larkin.
Yikes. Big yikes.
Yeah, so for being so incredibly bad for so long, you would think the Sabres prospect pipeline would look beautiful, and it does not. It's I think it was the Athletics prospect pipeline rankings of the NHL at the beginning of the season. The Sabres were 18th. It's not, especially for a team that has failed to make the playoffs, 11 straight years, to have the number 18 prospect pipeline, it's not good. It's not good enough. So if anyone has to get got, it's your amateur scouting staff, because that's just unacceptable.
Yeah.
The one thing, too, that the Pagulas said is they talked about how they were going to lean more heavily on video scouting, which is a bad idea. As someone who's had to track a lot of video, you're at the mercy of that camera person, especially as the leagues get lower in quality and farther away. If you're trying to scout someone in, Liga in Europe or in the KHL on a Tuesday night game, and all you have is video, best of luck to you trying to figure out which one of those players is number 11. And that's why a lot of scouting is in person. And you can do video scouting cheaply, much cheaper, because you don't have to pay for travel and all of that stuff. But you need to send people to see people in person, because the camera is, like I said, the camera person is who you're at the mercy of. And you're not going to be able to see what that player does on the bench, what they do when the puck is not in the frame, which are incredibly important things to evaluating prospects. Not to mention, alone, seeing that, hey, there's a line change going on behind the play, and our player's been on the ice for 25 seconds, and we haven't seen that yet. That's not good. Like that's something, too, that I think not only are the Pagulas doing this bloodletting, but they're turning things in a bad direction for the Sabres. And it is not a good time to be a Sabres fan or a Rochester Americans fan, because I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
Sean, do you think that the Americans deserved the fate that they did of their coaching staff just completely obliterated overnight?
I would say no. Taylor and his staff seemed to make some pretty good lemonade with the Sabres draft prospects they were given. However,
I like that. Yeah, go ahead.
hiring a new GM and yes man for the Pagulas that he likely is means that it should be his or her choice as to who the staff are if you're a new GM, because the buck stops with you, like I said. So you should be able to put the people you want in those places. That being said, that's not the tone that this had at all. This very much felt like the Pagulas cutting budget where they could, as the oil business is not doing so hot, and neither are many of their other business interests, which to me, I take it back to 2011 at their introductory press conference in which Terry Pagula said, money is no longer an object for this team. Money is no longer an obstacle. If I want more money, I could just go punch another oil well. And here we are 9 years later, and money suddenly feels like an object.
Right. Well, let's bury that, because my goodness, we covered Buffalo and Rochester's just coaching, axing, just so many heads falling off the chopping block with that. But another coaching change. Let's shift gears to the ECHL and bring on our next guest. Another coaching change at the minor league level happened in Greenville during our month or so between our off-season episodes here at In the Corners. Yeah, so the Greenville Swamp Rabbits announced the firing of head coach Kevin Kerr on Tuesday the 16th, and they hired former Elite Ice Hockey League head coach Andrew Lord, formerly of the Cardiff Devils over there in Great Britain. He's their new bench boss, and they announced that on Friday the 19th, so they didn't take too long to for people to speculate or anything. So here to discuss that and the changing of the guard over there in Greenville is the Swamp Rabbits play-by-play broadcaster and media director. And last but definitely not least, he is a very good friend of us here at the Sin Bin, Jordan Kuhns. Hey, Jordan, thanks for coming on the program.
Radio check, radio check, radio check.
Hey, you are coming in loud and clear, my friend.
Great. I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
Doing great. Hey, we got Sean O'Brien here too, so.
Doing pretty well.
Good to hear.
So tell us, of course, we're going to be focusing on the coaching change. How far along was Coach Kerr, did you know how far along Coach Kerr was in the recruiting process for next year when he got let go?
I know there was some discussions with some players along the line in the last month or so, but I can't imagine it was too terribly far. Just preliminary discussions with some college free agents and some of the players that were here this past year, trying to get a sense of who was interested in returning to Greenville. But I get the sense it wasn't too terribly far along the line, so that it was a complete, scrap and start over kind of thing.
With that in mind, tell us a little bit about Coach Lord coming in and what he is going to bring to the table from what you've seen.
I can only imagine greatness at this point. After hearing all of the reaction of Wales come over in our mentions, in my mentions, I know we're going to talk about that in a second. This guy is dedicated. He is passionate. He is a guy that is young and he's very good with players. I've heard him described very much as a player's coach. He comes very highly recommended to the Swamp Rabbits. So really a dedication to the game, a guy that has a championship pedigree, won 9 separate championships in the EIHL across 5 seasons. They have a lot of different things you can win, but certainly a guy that comes across with a lot of pedigree, a lot of winning behind him, the winningest coach in Cardiff Devils history. So a lot of good coming over with Andrew Lord on the rap sheet.
Jordan, one of the things that I thought was very interesting is hiring an EIHL coach from the UK felt very off the board from my perspective. If you would have given me 20 guesses as to who the next Swamp Rabbits coach would have been, I wouldn't have come anywhere close to that league or that coach. And I mean, he has quite the pedigree behind him, as you mentioned, and he looks to be a slam dunk hire. But were you surprised that that was the direction that the Swamp Rabbits went?
Yes, 100%. I can't say anything other than 100% on that one. Thought that there were certainly choices that ECHL former players or former coaches that were let go over this past season that certainly had a shot. And I get the feeling that they were part of the hiring process as well. But definitely, if I would have ever said, like you said, Sean, that it was coming from the UK, not really. I couldn't have said that was going to happen. But, I felt comfortable once I got a sense of when Todd Mackin told me, the president of Spire Hockey told me that just how dedicated he was and how much thought he put into his application and how it was a complete fit with what Spire wanted to do here in Greenville. It was a slam dunk for me in terms of just being a cultural fit too, being rededicated to the community, being a guy that you can count on no matter what to say, absolutely, we're going to dedicate ourselves to the city of Greenville and we're going to win something here in the process. And he is fully dedicated to being towards the top of the South Division and hopefully at the top of the mountain when all is said and done here.
One of the other things that I noticed too is when, and we kind of talked about this when we were talking about ROCHESTER'S, when a new general manager, in this case, a new ownership comes in, they very much like to pick their guy. Did you feel that played a role in this, where Kevin Kerr was not the coach that this ownership hired and they were looking for somewhere else? Or was this generally they felt the need to make a change, or a little bit of both?
I could see it both ways there. Not to discount anything that Kevin Kerr has done over the past 2 seasons. A dedicated, great guy that, certainly gave it his all here in Greenville and just came up short when it came to the winning side of things. But I felt like they wanted to make a cultural statement in being dedicated to the community and having a guy, a younger guy, perhaps someone who has a lot of championship pedigree behind him, came to the forefront in terms of the real big values that this ownership group wanted in a head coach. So I don't want to take anything away from what Kevin did over the past 2 seasons, but as they call him Lordo, and apparently no one refers to him by his first name, Lordo is the guy. And moving forward, that cultural fit, looking to see what he is able to do here in Greenville. I'm excited to see what he does at the end of the day.
So like you alluded to earlier, Jordan, I noticed your post on social media saying that you have found yourself with a ton of new followers because of Lordo, as they call him. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so basically I was blown away by the response when the coaching change. At first it was a press conference in Cardiff to announce that he was going somewhere else. And there was the rumors out there of him going to Wheeling as an assistant coach, as they had said that it was going to be a former player taking over, ended up being Derek Army. But Andrew Lordo was coming to Greenville. And the outpouring of support was just so unbelievable. I really had no sense of what hockey was like in the UK. And to see the love, I can't even come up with a word for it. Just an overwhelming amount of love for this guy. And this is a guy that's leaving them. There was no bitterness. There was no resentment. There was only love. And to see that, I couldn't help but just compliment the Cardiff Devils on the culture that they had created and the fans that they had. And as soon as I said that, the Devils retweeted it, British Ice Hockey Online retweeted it, and I have, in the past 48 hours, 200 plus new followers.
Whoa!
It's blown my mind. They're all from Wales. They have invited me to come over and take over in their culture. I'm getting the sense of their isms, their colloquialisms. I mean, it's a budding relationship with the country of Wales right now. So I've just been blown away by the love and the incredible dedication and passion that the Devils fans have over there. And we are considering ourselves Cardiff West. Their fans want a whole bunch of Swamp Rabbit swag, and they want to follow Coach Lord wherever he goes. And I hope that I have a lot of listeners at 3 a.m. Their time coming up here this year. So it's blown my mind. The response has just been unbelievable.
Did you have any feeling that you'd be adding diplomat to Britain amongst your duties here?
No, I did not in the slightest expect anything quite like this, and we've jumped all over it. So this is just incredible. To have these people, these strangers, essentially say, "Come over, we will show you a good time." I mean, in a world where you can't find a lot good with humanity right now, this is as good as it gets. It's definitely a bright spot in a dark time, so to speak. So I've been really happy with the people of Wales. I can't wait to get a chance to go over there.
That's so awesome. I mean, just to have that outpouring of unconditional love and support from that fan base, it's quite a thing to hear. So shifting gears a little bit, we'll close out with a couple more questions, but with the fact that, I mean, Carolina and Charlotte looks like they're having a bit of a falling out in regards to affiliations. And, in regards to the Swamp Rabbits and everything, what does it look like for Greenville coming into the hopefully played 2020-21 season?
Yeah, it's a day-by-day, see what happens kind of thing. I guess the feeling is until the NHL season ends,
right,
as Carolina is in the thick of it right now, and they want to worry about if they play again first before they deal with anything affiliation. That goes probably for anybody else at this point, unless the teams that are done, and if they have any movement, which I don't foresee. It really is a day-by-day thing right now to see once a decision is made to come back and play, should we get through this, and I hope that we do, and all of this news about the positive tests is certainly not great. But at the end of all that, I get the sense of we'll know more about where that's going, and if there's any other teams that shift along the way, and if that changes anything too. So it really is a day-by-day. I ask the question quite a bit when I come in to our staff meetings every week, like, is there anything new? Is there anything new? And it's always a no, we're not the priority right now. So that's really it right now. It really is a day-by-day, week-by-week. And I hope that we see hockey, and then that we, at the end of the day, once it's done, have a very quick resolution to that. But I just want to see the game back first, and then we'll worry about affiliation later.
That's completely
one last
fair. Go ahead, Sean.
One quick question about the affiliation. Since you went from an independent team 2 years ago to last season being an affiliated team, did that, just having an affiliation from being an independent team at the ECHL level, did that feel any different one season to the next from any aspect?
More work for me. I mean, no. So yeah, there was a lot of player movement between whether it was Greenville and Charlotte or Greenville and Springfield. It definitely added an air of legitimacy to the operation, and knowing that you had those game-breaking type players. Liam Pecoraro, I mean, I've said his name probably a million times over the past season. I had the chance to cover him while I was in juniors as well. He was in Waterloo and I was in Dubuque. So I have a past history with him, and it's great to see his development here. But having players from Charlotte like a Cedric Lacroix or a Jacob Pritchard, or on the Springfield side, having a Matt Marcineau or Patrick Bykov, having these legitimate game-breaking players that the team didn't have a year before was huge for this team. And it definitely was a cluttered South Division last year. You had your two real front runners and everybody else, it felt like. But it certainly, the Swamp Rabbits would not have been in the mix had it not been for those game-breaking type players that were afforded. So a huge difference when it came to player movement and having to really on the fly find players to fill in if there were call-ups for long periods of time. But at the same time, if they were with us, we could keep pace with some of the other teams that had those kinds of players too. So a huge difference from going from last place as an unaffiliated team to one that was in the playoff mix as an affiliated club.
Jordan, to close this out, I did want to say thank you, as I've told you many times before, but thank you for your openness, just about you speaking on social media about mental health and depression and your struggles with those things. I think that the more people are forthright with things like that, the better it is, that it becomes more of a conversation topic and not such a taboo or something that's hush hush, and I think we're getting over that as a society these past 5 or 10 years. greatly for sure. And you contributing to that, I just wanted to bring that out and ask as well, if people are interested in seeing that, where can they find your articles that you've written about that? And hockey wise, I know you've got that Down the Rabbit Hole podcast as well. Where can people find that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, thank you for that.
Of course.
Really, it comes down to when I started to see things change was when the Bell Let's Talk movement really got going.
Mm-hmm.
I remember its first year, honestly. I remember being very involved with that in the first year. And for those that don't know, Bell, which is a telecommunications company up in Canada, has a movement every year where if you tweet with the hashtag Bell Let's Talk over a 24-hour span, and that goes from the Pacific time zone to all the way to the Newfoundland time zone, whatever that's called, Atlantic, I guess. Basically over that time span, for each tweet with that hashtag or a text using their platform and all of that, they donate 5 cents to Canadian mental health initiatives. And that was really the first moment where I felt like I can tell my story. It is now comfortable and not taboo to talk about it. I suffer from depression. I suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder. These are things that I have to live with. I'm not ashamed of them. They are a part of me, but they are not me. So I've really tried to use my platform to realize and to show people that, yes, I live with these, much like a lot of you do. I want to show you that I'm strong and that you are strong too, strong enough to get out of bed every day and, attack the day. As horrible as things are outside our four walls these days, it is hard to find good news. I still found a way to get up. I know that you can. I know that everyone out there, if you're suffering from anything like this too, that you're strong enough and you're worth it. So these are things that I certainly want to raise the banner on and continue to be the leader at the front of the line on. I did write a couple of articles on Medium, which is really a platform that anybody can use. I think what I need to do, CC, is to create my own website here and have them there.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
Put that
Absolutely.
on the to-do list here. But I don't want that to go away. I want to continue doing. There was a project that I had done last year called Jordan's Journal, where I basically wrote down everything I did over a road trip and how I felt and what it was like outside and all of that over the course of a road trip. And that really got some great responses. So these kinds of projects I want to continue to hamper down on, and hopefully it's something I want to do where I want to create a character education program here in Greenville and talk about these things, anti-bullying, which I'm currently wearing the cross-check bullying shirt on this Zoom call, but nice. Another cause that I care about too. And I think the two of them are really intermingled. I know this is a very rambly answer. I'm sorry if I'm making this podcast longer than it has to be.
You're fine. You're fine.
Go ahead.
But these are things I care about. I care about the people that suffer from this. I know it's hard to talk about it. I know it's hard to be that guy that currently that seems to always say I'm sad. And yes, for the majority of my life, I can say that I've been sad, and depression brings you down and makes you disinterested in things that you love. And that there have been moments in broadcasts and games where I'm like, why am I doing this? I feel awful. It's hard to continue to fight through, but at the end of the day, there's going to be a better day, that we're not going to think about this as taboo, that we're going to come together and we're going to support each other when we suffer from stuff like this. So those are the things I want to continue to showcase throughout my career and continue the conversation and to be there for people that need it. So long story short, I suffer from these things, but I'm not these things. But I want people to realize that same facet is true for them too, if they suffer from these things too.
Beautiful. Wonderfully said. That's awesome, man.
You should take a lot of pride in your work and being able to use the platform that you have to spread those messages, because one of the things I've learned about mental illness is that people feel like they're alone. And even in an age when we're so incredibly connected, I mean, we can reach out and touch basically, 3/4 of the planet through the internet. that people still feel so alone in those times when they are suffering from mental illness, and just raising awareness of those people are not alone. That's a great thing you do.
Yeah, the thing with that, Sean, it's a good point, is that we live in an age where it's almost like attention grabbing, that everything has to be attention grabbing, and crying out for help would come across as negative attention grabbing. Like, oh, there they go again. But those are the times where you have to be there for people. So if you see someone struggling and they have a post like that, please do indulge them in listening. At least go as far as listening and see how you can help, even if just listening is what they needed that day. So, honestly, I wish social media could go away 95% of the time and we could rewrite history on it for sure. But there are good things about it where we can come together and use it as a positive sounding board and not the negative one that it seems to have become over the past couple of years. So I'm going to continue to use my voice on it as a positive force for change and not the negative one where it's constantly snarky and sad.
Yeah, it's to change the world, you got to change the world in yourself, I think is how that old adage goes. And you've definitely done that. So
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And if you want to follow Jordan on Twitter at JCKVoice and Juliet Charlie Kilo Voice.
Yes.
And once the hockey season starts up again in the ECHL, we'll see if it'll be on time or in January or December or January rather. You can hear Jordan on the mic for the Greenville Swamp Rabbits whenever they hit the ice. You guys do broadcast through Mixler, I believe, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Yes.
Looking forward to doing that again. I don't know when, as you said, but name the time and place, and I'm there. For
sure. And keep doing what you're doing out there in Greenville, Jordan. We appreciate you coming on the show, man. And you have a good rest of your day, and we will chat soon, no doubt.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan.
Jordan Kuhns, play-by-play broadcaster, and so much more for the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. So their new head coach over there, once again, Andrew Lord from the Elite Ice Hockey League over there in Britain. And as Jordan mentioned, that kind of segues actually very well into our next topic of Wheeling Nailers, hiring Mark French as their assistant coach. And interesting that two Wheeling Nailers, former Nailers players, got hired within the same week for sure.
Yeah, and I have no idea how they got Mark French. I remember when I saw that headline come across, and I mean, I think I've made it pretty clear that I grew up in the Hershey area
right.
a little bit, and I remember when Mark French was the coach there, and I mean, he won 60 games in a Calder Cup. And then, as time went on, I knew that he left Hershey, but never, didn't keep close tabs. But when I saw his name come across the wire that Wheeling sent him, I'm like, wait, is there some other Mark French? I look at him like, no, that Mark French.
It's
and
the Mark French, yeah.
Yeah, he's had success at every stop he's had, except for really, you could make the argument, the last one in the NLA in Switzerland. But still, this seems like a coup for the Nailers. This is a very good get for them.
Yeah, especially with the coaching, merry-go-round that they've experienced the past few years. I think a couple off seasons ago, they actually hired a guy, and then he actually took a job somewhere else, like a month or two later during the off season. So they had to scramble for a new head coach. It's just Wheeling has been just a complete revolving door when it comes to coaches the past few years. So to get some stability and to get some pedigree, as it were, in Mark French, that can only be a good thing for the Wheeling Nailers if and when hockey starts up for the 2020-21 season. Yeah. Another head coaching change that has happened in a month's time. Again, there's just so much to cover when you only do one episode a month. That's why I did 2 in May. But the Ontario Reign of the AHL parted ways with Mike Stothers, and that was kind of a shocking thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things of looking back and trying to figure out, okay, how did they decide that he was no longer the right coach? Mm-hmm. And I mean, has he had 2 kind of downish years? Yes, but he also won them a Calder Cup, and their AHL program has done a pretty good job of getting their draft picks ready to play. But I was surprised by this one, and it wasn't so much that he was, if I remember reading this right, that he wasn't necessarily fired, but he was not renewed as his contract was not renewed, which
Right. Good point.
That's not, it's not the same thing. I mean, they're going for a new coach, but that seems kind of odd, and there aren't a lot of details as to why. Like their press release about searching for a new coach was very cordial. I mean, he hasn't really come out and said anything about what's going on. Not that you would expect him to. This is still hockey. But I was very sad to see him go, though. I remember Stutzy when I was a kid in Hershey, and he was a player and then a player coach and then an assistant coach there. I met him a few times. I mean, I doubt he remembers that random, 6-7-year-old kid. But reading what a lot of reporting was on after he was not renewed by Ontario seemed to confirm what 7-year-old me thought of him, is that he was a good guy and a good coach. And I have confidence that if he wants to continue coaching in hockey, there will be doors open for him.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like you said, he won a Calder Cup when the Monarchs were the AHL team over there in Manchester. And then, of course, the AHL franchise got moved out to Ontario. And they kind of did a little switcheroo there where Ontario became an AHL town and Manchester became an ECHL town. Unfortunately, not anymore. But it's just, you look at the standings as well. Ontario had 64 points behind San Diego and Stockton, who were tied for 68 points in the Pacific Division. So Stockton 3, San Diego 4, Ontario 5. It's not like they were, way out of playoff position, like say the San Jose Barracuda with 49 points in the basement of the Pacific there. It's just, whenever you see a coach let go, I'm reminded of when Spiros Anastas got fired in South Carolina after just one season. He took the team to the playoffs, but a second round appearance wasn't exactly what they were looking for. And it was, I guess, South Carolina, Hershey, Washington Capitals, that whole affiliation tree, sometimes it's a culture thing. And I don't know if maybe the culture shifted in the Los Angeles Kings organization to where they didn't want to renew his contract, or if, they were just looking at it from the Kings' point of view and the fact that they weren't doing too well either. So yeah, it's tough to say. It's all, especially if there's no indication as to what happened or if there was a specific instance or just, again, a culture change behind the scenes. But like you said, he'll probably land on his feet, especially with the success he's had in the past, for sure. So doing a little hard pivot here. Let's talk about some newly branded franchises, both relocation and just a rebranding. We'll start with the AHL, and we'll go with the Henderson Silver Knights, the freshly relocated AHL franchise, formerly the San Antonio Rampage. They now have an identity. They released that on, I can't even, let's see, Thursday night. I'm looking at the release here, the press release, May 28th. See, it was over a month ago. I can't even remember the exact date. But they now have an identity. Henderson Silver Knights, new logo. I don't believe they've released the jerseys yet. But, Sean, I'm going to yield the floor to you, man. What do you think of the new logo and the new color scheme of the Henderson Silver Knights?
Well, first of all, let me say that I think AHL teams should have the freedom to brand themselves however they want, regardless of NHL affiliation or ownership.
Right.
Having the Minnesota Wild's AHL affiliate also being named the Wild with basically the same logo and color scheme, to me, that in a sense robs an Iowa market of having a name and a color scheme that connects with that fan base in that market. I couldn't imagine if Hershey or Rochester or Milwaukee switching names and color schemes just to match their NHL affiliate. Like, I can't picture that.
Mm-hmm.
From that instance, I'm always going to stick to that stance of I don't like it. That being said, if I put away my disdain for matching AHL logos and schemes and jerseys to their NHL clubs, I really do like this. I think the logo design and wordmark are both A+. I would have liked to see them do something besides black and silver, as it was the same as the team you just took over and the same as the Reign, who are going to play you a lot. But I don't know what a better color choice would have been, given that they were going to be the Silver Knights.
Right. And, a lot of folks that lived in the Las Vegas area do remember, and of course some some Western-based ECHL markets as well do remember the Las Vegas Wranglers. And but I do understand why they went the direction they did to brand Henderson, because that's where the facility is going to be. That's where the new arena is going to be. And so to differentiate that from the Vegas, you've got, obviously San Jose wasn't too concerned about that. San Jose Sharks, Barracuda, both playing at the SAP Center, although the Sharks have a new facility going up on that campus. So, it's not going to be in the same building anymore, but San Jose. And yeah, it's not like it's a hard and fast rule that you can't name the AHL team after the same city as the NHL affiliate. But Silver Knights, it's like, okay. Kind of the low hanging fruit there. It's, you could have been like the Henderson War Horses or something, especially since you have the horse there, the War Horse, as the logo. I think you could have gotten a little more creative. And, back to your NHL, AHL affiliation disagreement with the team being the same name. I just say bring back the Iowa Chops. You remember them?
I do.
Yeah.
And especially too, like for places, obviously Henderson is basically a suburb of Las Vegas, and San Jose are the same. But
Right.
like for places that are like Milwaukee and Nashville are nowhere close to the same market.
Sure.
Neither is Hershey and DC, or Rochester and Buffalo, they're a couple hours apart.
Yeah.
But like, especially with the revolving door of how NHL affiliations work, like, yeah, the NHL club owns them, but those teams get moved all the time. Look at the Lehigh Valley / Adirondack / Philadelphia Phantoms.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Like, the NHL club owned them the whole time, and they've been the Phantoms in 3 different cities. Like, that's, to me, you should let that market get to choose. Especially like in San Jose's case, I buy a teal and black San Jose shirt, and now I got merchandise that covers both the NHL and AHL teams. Ta-da!
Right. Yeah. I guess. Yeah, you could play it either way. But gosh, I'm thinking of the Calgary Flames here. They've had 5 different AHL markets in the past 15 years, and
yeah.
I'm going to look back on it here a little bit and just see, okay, so you've got, it started in 2005 to 2007, the Omaha Ak-Sar-Ben Knights. Ak-Sar-Ben is Nebraska backwards, so yeah, Omaha Ak-Sar-Ben Knights. And then 07 to 09, the Quad City Flames. 09 to 14, you had the Abbotsford Heat. And then 14-15, one season, you had the Adirondack Flames. And then 15 to present, you've got the Stockton Heat. So aside from Knights, you've been either the Flames or the Heat. And it's kind of like, okay, we get it. It's fire. Yeah. But the fact that Stockton and Adirondack, to a lesser extent, were pigeonholed into picking these names, and maybe Abbotsford and Quad City as well. It's like, yeah, it definitely stifles creativity. I'll agree with you there.
Yeah.
So,
but I do really like the logo and kind of the design elements, the thought they put into it, the use of the negative space with the H and the horses. It's very good.
It is.
I do give them a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, I definitely like it. In a vacuum, like you say, I definitely think it's a good looking logo. Yeah, I think it's a good logo. I like the font and everything. And yeah, the color scheme, we'll see how we'll see what they do with it, especially since, like you said, Ontario is also silver, gray, and black. And they're going to be playing them a lot because they're in the same division. So we'll see how that works out. Anyway, moving on to the ECHL and a new logo scheme that's going on over there. Kansas City Mavericks did a little refresh, got rid of the powder blue, which, I'm always a sucker for powder blue, whether it be, the Denver Nuggets uniforms that they had, or even the San Diego Chargers. As a Denver fan, that does ache my heart a little bit as a division rival, but powder blue is always on point. Unfortunately, the Mavericks decided they're going to move away from that. Sean, what are your thoughts on the shift from the Mavs?
Double thumbs down for nixing the powder blue jerseys. Like, I haven't seen what the jerseys are going to look like, and I'm hoping that they will be good.
Yeah.
But those powder blues, they were good, and they were also a different color scheme in a sea of what is black and other colors that populate sports in general. But their logo, I think, again, in a vacuum, I think it looks good. It's I like the cleanliness of it, and that it definitely seems to stand out and pop. But I also want to say that you're transitioning to a color scheme that is kind of close to Rapid City's and pretty close to Fort Wayne. Not ideal, but I do like it.
Yeah, and it kind of invokes, me being an old IHL fan that I am. It kind of invokes a little bit of the Kansas City Blades from the IHL days, which I think that's kind of what they were going for. Special thanks to Alexander Wolf out there on Twitter. He's always good to point that out and point out logos and IHL things to me. Former Toledo correspondent here from the Sin Bin. But the fact that I'm looking at the color scheme here. They went with black, Mavs orange, gray, and Iron Mountain. So you've got a gray and then kind of more of a silverish, looking gray. And so it's sharp. It brings them a little bit more into the 21st century. I got to say, it did, looking back at the old logo compared to the new one, it did look a little juvenile. But yeah, the fact that they got rid of the powder blue and the orange and the kind of the Rapid City red could draw a little bit of a similarity. In closer proximity, yes. Fort Wayne, you do got to be careful of that. I know they did release some jerseys on social media, but I think somebody pointed it out and saying that they kind of did a lazy job in regards to just doing a little copy and paste. I don't know if that's true or not, but if that's the case, then they're going to have to do kind of a little bit of a revamp. And it's we'll see what the officials' jerseys look like. We'll just reserve. I'll reserve my judgment till then. But the fact that you've got a sharp-looking, angular 21st century KC and the Mavericks font has been updated as well on the main Kansas City logo. I think both are good improvements, but alas, you and I are in the same boat, lamenting the loss of the powder blue. So we'll see how those jerseys look out, though. All right, shifting back to the AHL. Let's talk a little bit about, it won't be a super long talk because there's not really much to say. AHL Palm Springs, the AHL affiliate, the expansion franchise, going to be the 32nd franchise in the AHL once Seattle comes into the NHL in 2021-22. They've hit a considerable snag. They were supposed to have a groundbreaking in February. That was delayed due to unforeseen or extenuating circumstances. Actually was the quote, extenuating circumstances. And now the building has been postponed again. And it was reported on Wednesday that the Oakview Group that owns NHL Seattle and AHL Palm Springs and the Agua Caliente Indian tribe that is basically donating the land and helping with the project. They've paused the construction. I don't even know if it's gotten started really. And they've pointed out parking issues, public safety, with just the crowds that it's going to draw to that area in the city. It's Indian-owned territory, but it's still, it's still within the confines of Palm Springs. I don't know exactly how the boundaries there go, but it's a bit of and of course, COVID-19. California just reached over 100,000 cases, and man, it is wreaking havoc and taking a toll on the projected launch date of the AHL Palm Springs franchise.
It's not great, Bob.
It's not great, Bob. Not great, Bob.
I'm concerned, and at the same time, I felt like when things got postponed a little bit at the beginning, it was like, okay, these kind of things and crazy giant construction projects, especially between two, very distinct groups, that gave me a little bit of concern. And then, basically the world is on fire now. So that that seemed like almost like, oh yeah, well that makes sense that this is probably not going to be ready in time for the 21-22 season. But on the bright side, they might not have a 2021 season, so their goal of playing 2 seasons from now might still happen.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, yeah, with the delay, if not the cancellation of next year. I mean, both the AHL, ECHL, and SPHL are very gate-driven leagues. And so the fact that they might have to delay, I know I've spoken to someone about the ECHL. They're thinking maybe December or January as a start time. We'll see. Same with the AHL. I know they started that kind of the back to hockey board, selecting board members to spearhead the initiative to see if and when the AHL season rather can start on time. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe this will be a blessing in disguise for Palm Springs and, let them work out the kinks there. But if they're trying to launch their AHL franchise in coordination with the NHL Seattle franchise, who is, far, far into their renovation project of the downtown Seattle arena, former Key Arena down there. Who knows what it'll be come 2021? But yeah, it could be. There could be a bit of a delay and a bit of an overlap in regards to both of them coexisting at the same time.
I do enjoy how the renovation of they're calling it a renovation of Key Arena and not we're building a brand new thing, because it's like there's going to be like a post that's in the new arena. It's going to be like, this is the only remaining thing from Key Arena is this post
Right?
and the roof. But like, yeah, they literally have the roof suspended and are like holding it up artificially and are rebuilding everything underneath it. It's like, why don't you just build a new arena? But yeah, that NHL Seattle at this point, they're a lot farther along. So that might get done in time. But I mean, I'm trying to look on the bright side and I want sports to come back. But just
Right.
seeing some of the hearing about the NCAA and having their athletes return to campus, and it's, one group of positive tests after the other. The
Yeah.
Tampa Bay Lightning just basically shut their doors after I think I saw 11 of their personnel and players combined tested positive. That's not great.
No, not at all.
As well as I think I heard the Avalanche had 2 players test positive.
Mhm.
Like this is not going well so far, and we haven't even gotten to like training camp yet.
No, and I get the fact that people are hankering for sports. Trust me, we are too. But the fact that you have this global pandemic that just wreaks havoc on people's respiratory systems, and, the athletes that are young and in good shape can handle it a whole hell of a lot better than 70s, 80s, 90s people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. It just is, it is a slippery slope. And with the fact that just like the Spanish flu in 1917, 1918, there's the first wave and there's going to be the second wave. And then hopefully by then a vaccine will be out and, it can get taken care of. But man, it's just something that we could go on for hours talking about it, and COVID-19 and just how sports needs to, in my opinion, maybe take a back seat a little bit longer. I know like European leagues are playing and soccer. Of course, you had the Korean baseball organization that booted up a month or 2 ago, but I don't know. Are we rushing it? I think we're rushing it.
I think so too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm hankering for sports so much. I have gotten up to watch Korean baseball. The Samsung Lions, that's my team.
There you
But
go.
it's hard to imagine how some of this is going to work out, just seeing all of what's come to this point with all the positive tests of players who are already supposed to be in isolation and all of that stuff. Like, it's hard for me to look and see this and think, oh yeah, in 2 months we're totally going to have sports and empty arenas back. Like, the other thing too that I don't think gets mentioned a lot is like the only thing that these professional athletes, 23 years old, 25 years old, whatever, yeah, they're probably the most likely to be able to, should they get infected, survive. But also their health is their livelihood.
Yeah.
And I in no way claim to be a medical doctor or an epidemiologist or anything crazy like that. But like, yes, you may get COVID and survive, but does that mean you're going to be the same caliber of athlete that you were before? I have no idea. And that would terrify me if I were a professional athlete, because if you're telling me that I should take this risk to have sports for one season that could greatly affect my career long term, no, not doing that.
No.
I'm surprised at how many seem to be willing to do that for one season. But there are a lot of complicated factors, and we could be here all day trying to discuss them. But Cece, are you a medical doctor or epidemiologist?
I am not.
I'm not either. So let's move on to talk about things that we know more about.
Sounds good. How about some AHL awards that have been handed out since we last spoke? Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. So we were talking about 4 of the major AHL awards that had not been handed out during our last episode, which was aired on Memorial Day. So it was a special afternoon edition. And we've got 4 awards that were handed out since then. And let's break them down and see what Sean said and see what I said about who we picked and about who we thought were going to get picked and who actually got picked. First off, the Aldege. That's a very antiquated first name. Aldege Bastien Award for Best Goaltender. Bastien. Sean and I said Kaapo Kähkönen would walk away with this one. Sean wanted Dan Vladar from the Providence Bruins to walk away with it, but it was Kähkönen who got it on May 26th. And I mean, with the standout season that he had, how could you argue with that?
Like I said, it was kind of one of those things where you're splitting hairs in my mind. I thought Vladar, if I had to pick one goalie to start one game for me, I would have taken Dan Vladar. And to me, that's how I think of the award of best goaltender. If I had to win one game, who's my goalie? But there is some level of, body of work throughout the season. And even though I thought Vladar's had a better body of work, Kaapo Kähkönen's was bigger. He started more games, won more games, and those things matter a lot more to other people than they do to me. But this is one where it's like, did they get it wrong? No. Kähkönen's a great goaltender. I'm fine with this.
Yeah. Only can hand out one of those awards. So if it was going to be somebody, I mean, Kähkönen is a very, very well-deserving netminder for the best goaltender award.
Mm-hmm.
Second award, Eddie Shore Award for the best defenseman. Sean said Brennan Menell from the Iowa Wild as well. I mean, they just had a number of players that could win, a bevy of different awards that the AHL handed out. I said Brogan Rafferty, rookie out of Utica. The league went with Jake Bean on May 27th. Sean and I talked about this, and I actually asked Sean why he didn't include Bean in his top 3. We'll revisit that here in a second. But Sean's picks were Brennan Menell, Jacob McDonald from the Colorado Eagles, and Brogan Rafferty. And Sean mentioned that Bean was a good power play quarterback. He was a good power play quarterback, but you value the 5-on-5 scoring a little more with this hypothetical vote, and that Bean's transition defense was left a little to be desired this year. And so now that Bean has been officially named, best defenseman of the year, do you want to expand on a little bit on why he wasn't included in your top 3 again?
Sure. I mean, again, I just want to say he's going to be an NHLer, if not next year, then very, very soon.
Sure.
He definitely seems like he's going to be a top 4 role in the NHL, probably running a power play unit. To me, though, he has some flaws, and that's not to say that Brennan Menell or Brogan Rafferty or Jacob McDonald don't.
Right.
It just his seemed a little more at the forefront of the way I kind of grade the position, and that's fine. Like, I've had him as the 4th best defenseman in the AHL this year. The collective voting group, shadow government that they are, thought that he was the 1st. There's no shame in thinking that being the 4th best guy in the AHL. There really isn't. But for me, I think some of his transition defense and his in-zone defense leaves a little to be desired. I mean, there were definitely moments in which I thought his gap control was not great, but improving. He's definitely shown improvement in those areas from the year before, as well as times I feel like he struggled to contain top opposition, which, again, that's not to say that he is not a future NHLer and very likely, number 3, number 4 defenseman for the Carolina Hurricanes or another team. But I felt like this year he was the 4th best defenseman. And am I like brokenhearted and, about to storm the Bastille because he got named this award? No, he still is a deserving player. I don't think that this is some egregious error.
Right. It definitely wasn't a gross negligent part on the voters. By the way, I'm not going to let the shadow government comment slide. I mean, we're talking about AHL media members here, aren't we, that vote on this?
Yeah, but I would also like to see, I've always been of the opinion that if you're going to vote an award, your ballot should be public. Those ballots should be public. I want to see who voted for whom.
That is completely fair. I will give you that. So that it's a little, if you got to be held accountable for your decisions. Yeah,
exactly. And there have been media members at the NHL level who are like, I don't want to have to deal with people adding me on Twitter because they didn't like my votes. And I'm like, well, there's a very simple solution to that. Don't vote. If you aren't willing to defend your position, I just defended mine on Jake Bean. If you aren't willing to do that, don't vote. It's that simple.
Don't vote and give Sean your vote. Seriously.
I'll take
it. Take it. He'll take it with open arms, for real. Speaking of which, third award that had been handed out since we last had our episode, the Dudley Red Garrett Memorial Award for Rookie of the Year. Sean and I both said Josh Norris of the Belleville Senators. Guess what? He got it on May 28th. Not a big surprise here. Norris and Alex Fermenton both had outstanding rookie seasons. And Norris basically, he basically took the mantle of the B-Sens on his back and just went forth and killed it this year. 31 goals, 30 assists, 61 points total. Just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, we nailed it. There's no way around that one. This one would have been one where if someone else would have got it, I may have started, storming the Bastille here. This one should have been an easy slam dunk, and it looks like it was.
Well, yeah, and this transitions well into the Les Cunningham Award for the most valuable player of the league. You picked Jerry Mayhew. I picked him as well. Actually, we had the top 3 picks were pretty much the same. You had Jerry Mayhew, Boucher from the Comets, yes?
Yep.
Yeah. Having a brain fart. It's the off season. Just making sure, double checking. And Norris. Norris was your third pick and my third pick as well. When you have a rookie as your third pick for MVP of the league, then you better name him Rookie of the Year. That's what I'm saying. So, we both picked Jerry Mayhew. He had an outstanding season. With the Iowa Wild, him and Sam Anas were just phenomenal on the same line together. He got it. May 29th, he was awarded the Les Cunningham Award for MVP.
And I wouldn't say surprised that he won, but I definitely felt like there were a lot of different directions that could have been gone here. But I'm always happy to have picked or to agreed with the rest of the shadow government voters that made the choice. That's good when we're on the same page. That makes me feel good about my evaluations in hockey as well as theirs. But I really could have easily seen this going to Reed Boucher or to Josh Norris or a couple other players. But surprisingly, it went to Gary Mayhew.
Well, and when you score, when you lead the league in goals, with 39, that was the most by an AHL skater since 2011, 2012, which I didn't know that. So that's got to factor into it. And then you finished third with 61 points. Of course, Sam Anas had a ton of assists, but 61 points in 49 games. And, Iowa had their best regular season outing in Wild history. Granted, it's only a small sample size at this point. I think maybe 5 or 6 seasons. But, just looking at some of the breakdown here, 10 of his goals were game winners, registered 11 multiple goal outings, had a natural hat trick in a win over San Diego on February 14th. AHL.com made a great case for him here.
Yeah.
Really drove it home. And again, like you said, I'm going to have to disagree with you, and we can do that on the show. But
That's fine.
the fact that that I think Mayhew was kind of a runaway candidate for MVP. I do. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Reeve Boucher or Josh Norris. You know, both of them had outstanding seasons, but you know, I just think he was just a cut above this year. You know, and especially that statistic where he had the most goals from an AHL skater since 2011-12, and the season hadn't even been completed.
I do think that the most goals since 2011-2012 is a bit of a skewed kind of thing, and
Okay.
here's why. So one of the things is when you do really well mid-season in the AHL, what happens?
Get called up. You get called
You
up.
get called up.
Good
Yeah,
point.
if you only play 40 games, then you're probably not going to score 50 goals in a season if you only played 40 AHL games. You're going to get called up, and whether or not you're watching your NHL club from the press box or out there on the ice, like that's what happens a lot of times. So it was somewhat surprising to hear that he had the most goals from a skater in that time frame, but at the same point too, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, because if you're scoring 20 goals in 22 games in the AHL, you get called up. And I think there are some instances, like if Michael Bunting got to play the whole season in the AHL and didn't get called up or didn't get hurt, or other guys of that nature, like is Jerry Mayhew the runaway MVP at that point? We'll never know in that alternate reality. But yeah, I do think he was the favorite candidate, but I don't know. I think especially Sam and us, like that was the other thing too about not publicizing ballots. Was he the fourth place? How close was the voting? That's something that I feel like could generate some conversation and be an interesting topic to discuss, but we don't know. Like for all we know, Mayhew got all of the first place ballots and was the unanimous choice.
Yeah, and yeah, we will never know, but I think that would definitely generate more conversation and be a good conversation piece for sure. It definitely reminds me of the first season that I covered the ECHL. When the Steelheads got eliminated from the playoffs, I started covering the team that eliminated the Steelheads from the playoffs in the Colorado Eagles, and the fact that Eagles forward Michael Jolie, the fact that he got called up for a few games, and he probably would have been an MVP front runner, just as the production that he had. But he got called up to the AHL for a number of games, and so that definitely put a dent in his candidacy, I guess you could call it. But he did get the Kelly Cup Finals MVP because he was present with the Eagles throughout all that. And yeah, that just kind of reminds me of that and is a good point there. But like, yeah, it's just there's a lot of factors that go into it. If Minnesota had a few more injuries and he was called up, would he have been MVP? Probably not. That's a very good point. So those were the 4 awards that were handed out. And we're going to be winding down the show a little bit now. I did want to share with you before we go into quiz time. Sean's got another quiz for me. I'm kind of excited about this again. But before we go into that, I want to put this out there. Possibly the best name in hockey that I had not heard yet. I have been updating the AHL transaction site on the sin bin, and I'm going through with all the recent signings and everything. The New York Islanders signed a guy to an entry-level contract by the name, and this is his actual name, this is not a nickname, Blade Jenkins. Blade Jenkins. Would you name your kid Blade, Sean?
My wife and I have had discussions about what our kids' names could be when that time comes, and Blade has not quite entered the conversation. I think I might be scared to try and see what happens if I suggest that, but all I will say is I would be incredibly disappointed if after every goal that Blade Jenkins scored, he didn't have the Blade Jenkins kind of celebration.
A la Leroy Jenkins from World of Warcraft a number of years ago. Yes.
Oh yeah. That's
Jenkins.
That's absolutely, like, that's how he should be announced in pregame. That's how the Islanders broadcaster should refer him on play-by-play. That's
put a couple N's before Jenkins. Jenkins.
Yep.
And then
like I would love
Go
to hear
ahead.
Bruce Buffer do an intro of Blade Jenkins. That would be fantastic.
That would be pretty epic. And I think you could also throw in there every time he scores a goal, they announce his goal, announce the time and everything, and then having the guy that did Leroy Jenkins have the sound clip, "At least I got chicken." I think that'd be perfect. Boy, we're just a couple of nerds, aren't we? I'm so glad you picked up on that. I was like, I hope he gets the Leroy Jenkins reference.
Oh, no,
I'm
no,
like,
yeah.
oh, yes. Perfect.
Yep,
Perfect.
that is where I was going the whole way.
Awesome. Well, here's to you. I mean, probably going to play with Bridgeport this year, but Blade Jenkins, go forth and be well, my friend. You have an awesome name. So It's quiz time. I'm ready for it. We're going to wind it down here. And Sean's got a new quiz for me. Kind of excited about it. I've already said that, but I'm saying it again because I'm doubly excited. So let's see what we got for us this week.
So this one I've been cooking up for quite a while here. In my video tracking job with Stats Trek, I get to cover a lot of minor junior teams that are not major junior, so they're not sending a lot of guys to the NHL per se, but are the like feeder teams for the QA, the Q, the WHL, and the OHL. And a lot of them have some very out there team names. They aren't, the generic Lions, Bears, Titans, Spartans kind of thing that you see, everywhere else. And that is why today's quiz is called Junior Teams or Sean's Dreams. I am going to give you the name of a potential junior team, and you're going to determine if that is an actual junior team or one that I made up.
Fair enough.
I got 11 questions here, or 11 teams here, rather. So you need 6 to pass.
Okay.
And let's kick it off. Are you ready, Cece?
I am ready, Sean. Lay it on me. Give it to me.
All right. Number 1, the Brantford 99ers. Is this a real junior team or one that I made up?
It is a real junior team.
That is correct. It is a junior team founded in 1971 in the Ontario Junior Hockey League, otherwise known as the OJ.
The OJ.
Yep. The second contestant here, the Kanata Lasers.
I am going to say, Kanata Lasers. I'm going to say it is a junior team.
That is correct. It is a junior team founded in 1987 in the Central Canada Hockey League, the Kanata Lasers.
2 for 2, baby.
Yep. All right. Third, the Hamilton Cyclops.
I'm going to say that is not a junior team.
Just for record, you can't see the document, correct, that I'm pulling this from. This isn't on our show notes.
Nope, I cannot. I will confirm that.
CC Hawkley is 3 for 3.
Boom diggity.
Number 4, the Powassan Voodoos.
Powassan Voodoos. See, I'm going to get one wrong, and you're going to see that I'm not cheating. But I'm going to say that is a junior team.
That is correct. That is a junior team founded in 2014 in the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League, the Powassan Voodoos. CC Hawkley is 4 for 4.
4 for 4. I'm not going to get arrogant because I'm going to miss the rest of them. I just, some of them, they just sound like they could be, they sound like they could be the junior teams. I don't know. It just sounds good to me. I've never even heard of these guys.
So, number 5, the Thunder Bay Slingshots.
That sounds like it may possibly be a Sean's dream and not a junior team.
You're going with Sean's dream. Final answer.
Final answer.
That is correct. The Thunder Bay Slingshots I made up.
Oh man. See, and that could definitely, you could definitely go with that. You could be the Slingshots. Nothing wrong with that.
All right. Number 6, the Oakville Steamers.
Oakville Steamers. That does sound like a junior team name. Yes.
Finally, we got one. The Oakville Steamers were made up by me. Sorry,
wow.
CC. You do not get to go 11 for 11.
And I'm not looking at a document that I do not have access to. I promise, man.
Yep.
Oakville Steamers. See that just rolls off the tongue. That's a good one.
Yeah. So, City of Oakville in Canada. If you're looking for a junior team, I got a name already made for you.
There you go. Get that copyrighted.
Yep. All right, number 7, the Shreveport Mudbugs.
Oh, I am familiar with the Shreveport Mudbugs. They are a junior team.
I was kind of nervous about putting them in because they definitely have one of the more ridiculous names, but
They do.
I also kind of figured that you had heard of them. But that is correct. They are a junior team founded in 2016 in the North American Hockey League.
Got to give me some easy ones,
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've already got 6 right here, so you've already passed the quiz. Now we're just going for extra credit. But
Extra credit.
Number-
I'll take it. I've always been
Yep.
an extra credit kind of guy. Go for it.
number 8, the Hamilton Kilty Bees.
Kilty Bees.
That's correct. Not the Killer Bees, the Kilty Bees.
That sounds a little too ridiculous to not be made up. I'm going to say that is a junior team.
That is correct. The Hamilton Kilty Bees are a junior team founded in 1974 that play in the Greater Ontario Junior League.
I don't know how or how you would justify a Kilty Bee. I mean, I would love to see the thought process behind your dreams. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of the one too where I was hesitating. I'm like, that sounds too stupid to be made up. And that is a team who I have watched games for. Their logo is literally a bumblebee in a kilt.
Wow. So I'm like, what is a Kilty Bee? And you just removed all. Yeah. I'm gonna have to look that up now. A Kilty Bee. Wow. Must be a big Scottish population there.
I genuinely cannot find where they got the name from. Like looking into their website and stuff like that, it just seems like, well, that's what we named it in the 70s, and we just stuck with it the whole time.
Oh, and it's not like a bee, like the insect. It is the letter B.
Yeah, it is the letter B.
Yeah.
That's the thing that makes it even kind of more off kilter is it's the bees, just B''S and not the bees, the insect, but their logo is an insect wearing it's
Yeah. It's a lot to take in.
all right.
Okay.
Number 9, the Chambly Forts.
Chambly Forts. I'm going to say that you made that up.
That is incorrect. The Chambly Forts are a junior team founded in 2015 in the Quebec Junior AAA Hockey League.
Blast.
I got 2 on you, so that's...
You'll take them.
Yep. All right, number 10, the Amherst Diggers.
I'm going to say that's made up as well.
That is correct. I made that up.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, I have not heard of the Amherst Diggers. I've heard of a few Amherst teams, but not the Diggers. So
It's also amazing, too, how many, junior, sub-major junior leagues there are. There are a lot, so...
There is. Yeah. NAHL, USHL just here in the United States, but just even different levels of that and up in Canada, I'm sure.
All right, number 11, last one here. The Timmins Rock. Not the Rocks, just the Rock.
Timmins Rock. I'm going to say that is a junior team.
CC Hawkley, you have gone 9-2 here. The Timmins Rock is a junior team founded in 1991 in the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League. I really feel like their logo should just be Dwayne Johnson standing on a turnbuckle.
I think well, if Dwayne, that would be kind of intimidating. Dwayne Johnson just giving the eyebrow, the Rock just, doing that whole thing, the people's eyebrow and all that. Yeah, that would be very appropriate, I think, for that team. The Rock.
All right. I think next time I'm going to have to come up with a harder quiz. That's two in a row you passed. I gotta start getting creative here.
Well, I mean, I can't say that I've been following the lower junior levels of hockey, but you do research, you see the teams that players play for on Hockey DB or Elite Prospects, and you come across the Minnesota Magicians or the Bismarck Bobcats or the New Mexico Scorpions or different teams in different places for sure. It's just something that I picked up over time, and Yeah, I guess you're going to have to try a little bit harder there, Sean.
Well, my dream is that one time we are going to have Matthew Harding back on and we can play Name Pat Falloon.
Yes, the puck soup game that Sean got me turned on to, where you have, it's like Name That Tune, but Name Pat Falloon, where you have a number of clues that you can guess a person in a certain number of clues, just based off of
Their hockey DP page.
Yeah, exactly. And just where their height and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll see if Harding will be up for it here sooner than later.
Yeah, because I had so much fun listening to that on Puck Soup, and I'm like, we need to steal this and just do an AHL and ECHL version of that. Like,
that would be perfect. That'd be great.
Yep.
Oh, well, it has been about an hour and 45 minutes, and we're gonna officially put a bow on this bad boy and call it good for episode 86 of the In the Corners podcast. Sean, you got anything left to say before we close her down?
I'm hoping that the months that follow that things start looking up for, are we going to have sports, as well as that maybe we don't have everyone get fired in the month between this episode and next. Other than that, you can follow me at Sean O'Brien on Twitter, at Sean O'Brien _81 on Instagram. And you can find my work on stats and graphs in minor league hockey, linked on both of my social media pages. So come give me a follow. I have a pretty good time on Twitter.
He really does. And don't forget, guys, whenever he posts something that you may not agree with, it's only a model. So it's only a model. Don't forget that. Well, for Sean O'Brien, the analytics guru himself, my name is CC Hawkley. Thank you guys for listening in on the show. Don't forget to visit thesinbin.net for all of your minor league hockey news and insights. My Twitter handle is at Sinbin Eagles. Don't forget to follow the Sinbins at Sinbin News. And don't forget to follow the Sinbin on Facebook either. Facebook.com/thesinbin.net. We also have a Patreon if you want to leave a tip in our digital tip jar. I almost said digital dip jar. I don't know what a digital dip is, but dyslexia is fun. Digital tip jar. Be sure to leave a tip if you want to be a monthly contributor. Please support minor league hockey and the news and the coverage that we provide. We put a lot of hard work, a lot of labor, blood, sweat, and tears go into this website. Also, don't be afraid to let us know how we're doing and rate us 5 stars on Google and Apple Podcasts and any other podcast platform that has the review capability. Oh, by the way, I did want to mention August 1, we are getting a completely revamped Sinbin website and logo. We ourselves are doing a bit of a logo refresh. So stay tuned for that. August 1, we be dropping a new logo and a new website, and it's going to be awesome. I've seen it. It looks super clean. It's an upgrade. It's a new era. We're super excited about it. So again, thesinbin.net. Come check us out. All your latest hockey news and coverage. Once again, for Sean O'Brien, I'm CC Hawkley. Thanks for tuning in to the In the Corners podcast, and keep your stick on the ice.
Thanks for listening to the In the Corners podcast. Stay caught up with the latest minor league hockey news by downloading the Sinbin app for Android and Apple devices.
All sports fans have experienced this, right? Something amazing happens on the ice and you think, man, I wish I'd have been filming. Now with the Sporfy app, you can replace that thought with a click. With just one click of a button, Sporfy captures the past 15 seconds of action so you can instantly replay and share your favorite moments all without having to film. And it's easy too. All you have to do is download the app on iOS or Android devices and experience an all-new way of filming sports highlights.